Now, I'm sure your waiver wire feels like it's just being picked through top to bottom, but that may not be the case. There are still some legitimate potential difference makers just floating on the waiver wire right now in a majority of leagues that are just begging you to go pick them up right now. I'm back, you're back, waivers are back, my cold's back. Thanks for all the support, guys. I love you. Let's get into the video. Okay, first up, let's get right into the juice here with a nice Seattle Marooner. You know, my boy, Cole Young, the second baseman. Now, I love getting to hype the Mariners. It gets me going, but Young, honestly, is really just starting to come into his own in the 2026 season. And watching the growth that he's now displayed from 2025 to 2026 is one of my favorite things about these Seattle Mariners. Young has just been one of the more consistent hitters for the Mariners for large portions of the season so far, which I know just isn't saying a lot because so many of them have just been sucking ass, but he has made some real strides in his development in 2026. For starters, Young just continues to pull the ball in the air a lot, was 23% last year and is 28% this year, just elite levels. He was never really expected to be like a power first guy, but with the ability to pull the ball in the air like he's displayed, he will hit a lot more home runs than you expect. I can easily see him finishing years with 10 to 15 by the season's end. He's backed up in the box, he's tighter to the plate, and he's opened his stance a bit more to be able to lift the ball more with some power. One of the main drags on his game in 2025 is just he wasn't really able to hit left-handed pitching. Well, that has completely changed in 2026. He's just crushing lefties this year so far. Young is batting .324 with a .940 OPS and 2 home runs against southpaws and 37 plate appearances. It's a massive fantasy and real-life boost for my boy. And it's not like Young has been super lucky or is due for some major regression either. All of Young's underlying numbers are actually pretty good. He has a .284 expected batting average, a .460 expected slugging percentage with a slightly inflated BABIP of .349. So maybe just a little aggression there. Now, I know it seems like he doesn't have a ton of these huge positive things in his profile, but he also just doesn't have any weaknesses either. He's hitting more line drives, he's hitting less ground balls, and most importantly, he's just improving as the season goes on. And you can't underestimate that from a young guy. No pun intended. Second base position in fantasy is super weak. It'll get warmer in Seattle. Balls will start flying out there a little bit better. I am super surprised that his roster rate is still under 20% as of now. The kid is clutch. Scoped this graphic by one of the better X accounts for Mariners fans. At 22 years old, this is just unheard of. He's him. So anytime a pitcher records double-digit strikeouts, you should take notice. And anytime that same pitcher does it in back-to-back outings, it should just jump out and slap you in the face or kiss you on the lips. And that's exactly what we have with Cade Cavalli right now, recording double-digit strikeout performances in his last 2 outings after he just struck out 10 struggling Mets batters on Wednesday. And I noticed 2 really big changes in his last 2 outings that I want to dive into more. So one has just been the ability to get ahead in the count early, throwing strikes. His first pitch strikes percentage has been up to 65% in his last 2 outings, giving him the ability to get hitters into more of a protect mode rather than a hunt mode and let his best pitch, his curveball, just go to work. There was a little caveat in that last outing though, as he had an 8-run lead by the 4th inning where he proceeded to throw 24 consecutive strikes to finish the outing, which regardless of the score is so impressive. I don't care what you say. Not having one pitch, one feel, one slip up in 24 consecutive throws is an amazing feat. And what I want to highlight by talking about this is just don't underestimate how much getting ahead in the count can help a pitcher stabilize their outings. When they have the ability and want to throw the curveball as much as Cade does, it just sets everything up for him if he can get ahead in the count throwing strikes early. And second, Cavalli is just simply putting batters away. His put away percentage has been insane the last 2 outings, so when he gets batters to 2 strikes in the count, it's how often that next pitch ends in a strikeout. It was 35.7% against the Mets and 33.3% against Atlanta. Just incredibly efficient by him and shows off some of that raw talent in that arsenal, ability to be a potentially high strikeout guy. It bumped up his season ranking for put away percentage to 37.5 in 13th out of the entire MLB, right behind Mr. Garrett Crochet. Some say those just might truly be unsustainable rates, and they might be, while others might just say that this is Cade Cavalli turning the corner, learning and understanding how to pitch to his strengths. He's piling up whiffs, he's piling up strikeouts, and he's just on a roll right now, so you can't not add him, even though I do expect a little regression to come his way. He won't be striking out double-digit batters every outing. Let's just make that clear right now. His expected FIP is 3.81, while his actual's 2.82, so that is a decent gap, and he can tend to still give up a little bit too much harder contact because the four-seamer isn't really a whiff pitch, only 19.8% on the year. But in the end, Cavalli has a solid schedule coming up. He has the second worst BABIP among all qualified starting pitchers with at least 30 innings pitched, so that is some positive regression for yo ass. And I imagine your waiver wire is just starved or just bare of any and all starting pitching upside. So whatever, I'll send it, I'm in. Okay, next up, we're going to do a prospect to stash. And it's in quotations, because he's not technically a prospect anymore, but he is just milling away down in AAA still. And that's going to be Noelvi Marte off the Cincinnati Reds. So, let's just get it out there right now. He does not belong in AAA. He's batting .429 with a 1.135 OPS, 2 home runs, 6 RBI, 7 stolen bases, 5 walks, and only 9 strikeouts in 54 plate appearances. He does not belong down there. Cincinnati needs to find a real spot for him on the big league club. It's not like their lineup 1 through 9 is untouchable, and I feel like he was just never put in a position to really succeed to start out the year. It's hard not playing every day. He was getting platooned. He was batting only against lefties, which he was actually worse off against in 2025. So that did him no favors whatsoever for his real life stats and his confidence. It was almost just pointless, Marte being up with the big league club and getting platoons. So I get why they sent him down. But at the same time, it's not just on Cincy or the manager either. Marte didn't hit, and he also just needs to learn to play some above average defense. For sakes, man, you're not on roids anymore. You got to learn to play some defense if you want to get everyday at bats at the major league level. I was high on him preseason. It's one of my biggest misses for sure so far, but everything still is there in the hitting profile. He's a legitimate potential 5 category contributor if he can just find some consistent success at the major league level and gets the opportunity to do so. I don't know if he will, but it's clear he's too good of a hitter for AAA. That's doing nothing for him. He will eventually force his hand back up with the big league club. Maybe some injuries will happen. Maybe he'll learn to play average defense. Who knows? But compared to some other prospects that have never took an at-bat at the major league level yet, we've known Marte can do it. We've seen him do it through his career. He is a hot and cold player. I like his ability to be able to run with something, maybe a bit more than some potential unknown prospect younger guys that you could currently stash in an open NA spot. Okay, next up, we're going to go with a pitcher returning from the IL very soon, probably in the next couple weeks, 3 weeks, and it's going to be another Seattle Marooner. And that's going to be Bryce Miller. So Miller has just kind of been toying with fantasy managers' hearts, with the Mariners' hearts, since his great year in 2024, where he posted a 2.94 ERA with 171.45 K to walk ratio and 180.1 innings. 2025, if we're looking at it, sort of was a complete disaster, albeit his performance in the playoffs, where I think he still was the Mariners' best starter there. He really gave them what they needed in those games that he pitched. But in the regular season, he had a gross 5.68 ERA in 18 starts. He had multiple injuries. He had loose bodies in his elbow, shoulder problems. But the playoffs did just kind of really remind everyone of the potential upside in his fantasy arm when he's healthy and when he's feeling right. So heading into the 2026 season, that hype and that potential really was short-lived. He had one spring start and then went to the IL with an oblique injury. So you're probably wondering, why am I recommending him now? Well, Miller is just throwing harder than ever now. His fastballs are averaging 97.3 miles per hour, where he's at 94.8 last year, and that is a big deal. His slider also touched 88.6 miles per hour, up nearly 4 from where it was last year. 2 massive increases for both his main pitches, which could be legit difference makers if that velo holds. Even if they don't, though, he does pitch half his games in the friendly pitching confines of T-Mobile Park. He has a solid team and coaches around him. I still think he could be a solid top 50 starting pitching option. When Bryce throws hard, he's feeling good, and when his velo's down, you just know something's up with him. I honestly do think Miller is ready to put that injury-riddled 2025 season behind him and go prove to people that he can be a solid arm in your rotation in the 2026 season. Again, this public service announcement is brought to you by a die-hard Mariners fan, full of complete bias. Proceed with caution. I don't know why I found that funny, but I did. But anyways, next up here, we're going to go with Carlos Cortez. And now, honestly, the Savant page truthers are just going crazy over this guy right now. It's redder than my buddy's dog as he gets a hold of my leg. Yuck. But it's just seemingly out of nowhere this year. The only thing that's really lacking on that profile is just his bat speed. And he's not pulling the ball in the air enough, or at least not an elite level. It doesn't matter, though, when you're just barreling every single baseball. The only hitters in the MLB right now that are in the 90th percentile or better in both barrel percentage and strikeout percentage are Mr. Cortez and Yordan Alvarez. Yes, you are seeing that right too. He's in the 100th percentile for strikeouts at 6.8%. But donkers. So Cortez has made it his mission just to attack high fastballs this year. So if we look at these graphs here, is a plus 25 increase in pitches at the top of the zone from last year to this year, but with a minus 50 point decrease on K percentage and a plus 11 on average exit velocity. So the man is just hunting and punching those high fastballs. This essentially means that pitchers adjusted to throwing him less in the zone and more upstairs, and he responded by swinging more upstairs, missing less, and hitting it harder. Kind of a textbook sign of a legitimate breakout or skill growth. Cortez's chase rate also dropped from 2025, allowing him to attack more pitches. His in-zone contact rate has jumped from 80.7 to 86.7, driving him well above league average. And just looking at his spray charts here from 2025 to 2026, he's hitting the ball all over the field. Not just that nice U shape you see in 2025, and no, that's not a coincidence. That's just a hitter timing everything up perfectly. What you see in 2026 is more of an all fields approach that is more sustainable power potential. The deepest place to hit it out in a park's center field, when you have the ability to spray it everywhere, you can take advantage of certain parks. But before we all get worked up here, I know it's too late for me, it's not all sunshine and roses. He's a strong side platoon guy. He'll sit against all lefties, at least right now. So definitely if you're in the daily league, he gets a bump there. Cortez is also just hitting grounders at an astronomical rate at 50%, which we just know over time won't lead to consistent success. Probably why his BABIP is running a little high right now at almost 400. And his home run to fly ball ratio is just juiced out of its mind at 24%. Like, you don't know how ridiculous that is. The MLB average is around 10%, if you were wondering. So 24% is insane. That would mean out of 100 hit fly balls, 25 of them are leaving the park. Regression. Add in the fact that pitchers are going to start working down low and away more and more against Cortez, as he has struggled in those areas. We'll have to wait and see how he adjusts to it, like he adjusted with those high heaters, to really determine what his potential ceiling will look like rest of season. Cortez is sort of giving me like 2023 Brent Rooker vibes. Both players look to be firmly on like the journeyman bench path going forward into their age 28 seasons, but something just clicked. Swing decisions improve. Rooker posted a career high 817 OPS with 30 home runs, and now Cortez is posting a 1.129 OPS and is on pace for 30 homers. Some players do honestly just take some time to find their swing, and maybe that's happening with Cortez right now. He's just hitting so ridiculously well that if he's available in your league, you just have to pick him up as a potentially high upside, still adjusting hitter playing in a great home ballpark. All right, and bias aside, we're going to hit it up with one more injured pitcher to stash, and that's going to be Jared Jones off the Pittsburgh Pirates. So yes, we are definitely in the stashed injured pitchers part of fantasy baseball, where a lot of these guys that missed the start of the season are ramping up their rehabs and probably returning in the next month or so, or hopefully at some point in May. And Jared Jones is one of those guys. And honestly, I wasn't that interested in him coming into the season, especially after an internal brace procedure. But man, after his first rehab start, oh boy, was he juicing. He threw 3 perfect innings at low A, mind you, averaging 99 miles per hour in his fastball, topping out at 101.1 at his max. 101.1. Striking out 5 batters. So yes, that clearly perked up my pants. Anytime a starting pitcher hits triple digits, you guys know I just get a little bit too excited. I know, and I'm looking at you, Chase Dolander. But that is just a massive increase on the 4-seamer, and his curveball also looked better, and his addition of his new sinker to help alleviate the hard hit tendencies of the home runs that he tended to give up in his rookie season, and it showed 6 more inches of horizontal break, which is just a big deal because it gives it that much more separation from his 4-seamer four-seamer, making it extremely difficult for hitters to pick up when he has the ability to shove 100 miles per hour down your throat. Now, I know he wasn't anything close to like a must-start, must-roster player when we last saw him healthy, but he's only 24 years old. Remember, he's a former top prospect. He has a new pitch mix, new velos if it holds up, with a return date by the end of May. With Jones' return date at the end of May, now is the time to stash him if he's still available in your leagues and just see where this goes. I think he's as interesting as a stash as any other injured pitcher out on wires or available right now. Okay, now we're getting into the Yahoo most added players sections where I go over 5 pitchers and 5 hitters to let you know if I think you should pick them up, drop them, let your other teammates waste their fab budget on them, or just what I do. It's not going to be in depth like it is in the main waiver wire section, but still I'm going over a ton of popular guys, so make sure to check this section out. Okay, first up we got Mad Max Meyer. Now Meyer is just an off-speed demon that just needs to get away from throwing poor fastballs. His slider and sweeper are great, solid whiff pitches, strike pitches, and put away ones. He just needs to limit the damage on the four-seamer. It has a 386 expected WOBA. Before we really can talk about Meyer and his potential ceiling here, he is improving. He's good to hold if you already have him on your roster. It doesn't look like he's going to be going 6 innings anytime soon for quality start leagues. I'm not like overly excited about chasing him. He's somewhat a watch though to see if he can figure out and tweak that four-seamer to make it usable to set up all his off-speed success. Next up we got Peter Lambert. Now he's 2 years removed from just a downright terrible season in Colorado with the Tommy John surgery just sandwiched nicely in between there. He relies on that 4-pitch arsenal, a four-seamer that hovers around 95 miles per hour. He has poor extension, average vert, but a high arm angle for some deception off the release. He has a changeup, slider, and cutter to follow. He has added some velo since we last saw him in 2024, and 2 starts in, the whiffs are just out of control here. He's rocking a 41.5 whiff percentage, good for the 99th percentile in the league. Strikeouts are king for fantasy, remember it and chase it. His third start, however, just didn't go as well. He only lasted 4.1 innings with 2 earned runs and 3 Ks. He struggled with some walks. I still think Lambert could be a potentially sneaky add here. You're looking for some potential hidden starting pitching upside on the wire if you want to go chasing. Nothing guaranteed in his profile whatsoever, but he does have some raw tools and raw talent that if he can put some things together, I can see him going on a little run here. And then Louis Varland again. I think I was one of the first ones to call, not to toot my own horn about picking him up, and it's just really starting to pay off now. He's been given the closer role. He's just so dominant, so calm. He's just been the much better pitcher than Hoffman this year, and it is showing. If he gets removed from the 9th inning role though, it probably won't be anything that Varland did, but just specifically that John Schneider is just wanting his most trusted high leverage receiver in any situation that he chooses, and not just limited to the 9th inning role. Regardless, he needs to be added everywhere if he hasn't already. We'll keep going with Elmo Rodriguez. Now he wasn't bad in his debut by any means, but with Rodon nearing a return and Garrett Cole shortly back after, I don't think he'll do enough to justify a rotation spot in New York or on your fantasy roster. Definitely remember the name, the 21-year-old will make some noise eventually. And then last up, good vet Bailey Ober. Now last year was just a disaster for him and fantasy owners everywhere who were just clinging on for dear life that the Ober of the old would eventually return. Spoiler alert, he never did, and I don't think he ever is again. The version we are seeing this year is a bit better than the 2025 version though, so credit to him. He's doing a decent job of limiting hard contact, but that's about it. He has an 88 mile per hour fastball. He's not generating a lot of whiffs. He's not a dominant ground ball pitcher, and he's running a very low BABIP at 250. Add in that his expected FIP is about 50 points higher than his actual at 4.35, and I'm not getting anywhere near this, and I'm not chasing this at all. Okay, now on to the Yahoo 5 most added hitters, and look who it is, Eldamiro Vargas. Now this dude just might literally be the next Barry Bonds. He won't stop, can't stop. He's the greatest hitter alive. I still, even after all this, I don't really have long-term hope for him. I know I feel bad. It feels weird. It just seems so unrealistic to me. And a massive cold streak just feels like it's so due, but hey, what do I know? He's mashing on the field, and maybe he's just this year's unicorn hitter that defies all odds based on every underlying metric saying that he can't. it does happen. Okay, and then we got the next big call-up, Travis Banana. So now Mr. Banana was hitting well in AAA. He made his debut against Tampa a few days ago. He went hitless with 1 strikeout, but drew 2 walks. He followed that up with a nice over, but did hit some balls with juice. Alibi, most of them he just pounded into the dirt. The number 1 overall pick in the 2024 draft is expected to be better for the Guardians in real life than your actual fantasy teams. He's one of those guys, right? Like, come on, just go up there, drop your nuts and start swinging for the fences, dude, and pick up some stolen bases for me too. But there is still a lot to like in his profile. He should still swipe a lot of bases due to his elite speed and above average on base percentage. He has the power to hit home runs, though he'll likely need to start pulling the ball more in the air if he wants to put up like 20 plus in a season. Well, I don't think the upside is there for him to immediately turn into some like fantasy superstar from the get-go. He still is worth adding at the weakest position in fantasy to continue to chase the ghost of Nick Kurtz from last year. We'll keep going with Daniel Schneemann. Now, a lot of these guys are feeling a little unexciting. I don't know if I butchered that pronunciation. I don't know. I'm tired. My brain's not working. But we sort of are in this lull in the season where a lot of the early waiver wire gems are long gone and picked through. But Daniel has been solid, though. You can't discredit him in that regard. He's pulling there at an amazing clip at 25%, which is obviously superb. His bat speed has ticked up a little bit this year. He still does whiff. He chases and strikes out just way too much to be super consistent for fantasy purpose, but he's a guy that you can pick up or that you can count on to pick up some hits, show some power when he's seeing the ball this well. But I do expect some regression here with a 438 BABIP and a 369 expected WOBA compared to a 417 actual in the near future here. Not the most exciting guy for season-long value, in my opinion. We'll keep going. Nicky Boy, Nick Gonzalez. Now, there is always decent stretches, it feels like, every year throughout the year that you'll see Nicky Boy just pile up a ton of hits because he does have a decent hit tool, but there's just no real power here with the weak quality of contact. I don't think he's going to be consistent enough without that power to be useful for 12-team leagues. There's no real category impact. I'd chase elsewhere. And then last up, we got Young Ho Lee. Now, he's definitely a contact first player. He has some power and has some speed. He had 8 home runs last year and swiped 10 bags. Lee has great plate discipline. He rarely whiffs. He rarely strikes out, solidifying that nice base floor that you love for points leagues. The power is lacking, though, and he surprisingly hasn't stolen the base yet this year. The fantasy profile is looking extremely limited right now when he isn't picking up hits in bunches. When he has a 2 to 4 hit day like he has recently or done in his 4 of his last 8 games, you'll be happy. But if not, you aren't going to get much of anything at all. But if that's what you need, he's yours. All right, now let's get into the recap section here where I go over every week's waiver wire video the next week. So we're recapping my previous one on April 24th. So first up, we had J.R. Ritchie. Now, his second outing wasn't as great as his first, clearly, but he's still usable. He's supposed to be a command first pitcher, so the 4 free passes did him no favors at all. He has the pitch mix, but command first prospects can have their fair share of up and downs, obviously, without the overly dominant pitch, like Tole's fastball, for example, to keep them afloat as emotions run high throughout an outing. I'm still holding for sure to see if he can solidify himself a rotation spot going forward. And then speaking of Peyton Tole, we had Tole up. Now, the velo was down nearly 2% on his four-seamer from his first outing against the Yankees, so that is a little concerning, but nobody says it's an issue so far. But that fastball still will play a 95 compared to 97 because of his elite extension. The upside is still sky high with him. I'm still holding him. I'm still adding him if he's out there. I need to see another start from him. Crochet going on the IR likely keeps his rotation spot for at least a few more turns here, regardless of how he pitches. And then we'll keep going with Chase Dollander. Now, I'm just so high on this guy. I know we talked about him earlier in the waiver wire section. It's not really even funny at this point. I'm just a sucker for a 100-mile-per-hour heater from a starter. But I just like everything about it. Besides, he'll pitch half his game in Coors Field. That part I hate. Maybe he conquers it. I'm holding out hope. Then we had Connor Prelup. Now, I like this guy's arsenal. I think his final line was a bit better than the actual, though he lost the feel for his four-seamer a bit with only a 50% strike rate on it, which isn't good. The changeup was way better, though. I'm super into this. He has the raw talent, but this is a tough next outing against the Jays. If he aces it, though, buckle up. And last up, Miguel Vargas. Now, he simply just looks better. I'm honestly sad I didn't get more Vargas stocks in any of my leagues this year. I'm into what he's doing. He's potentially a 5 category contributor with everything under the hood looking good to back it up. I'm fully in. Okay, so totally I'm still in. Wasn't the best, but not the worst by any means. Dolander, good. I'm excited for this guy. Prelep, good based on results. Big test with the Jays coming up. Vargas is a stud. Richie, he's still a hold. So we're going no punishment again, boys. 2 in a row.
Ow! Ow, my ear hurt that.
But all right, that's it. We got through it. I'm tired. I'm sore if the energy's down. You know, I'm still just doing this as like a hobby and hope, you know, hopefully that maybe can turn into something, but I still rock, you know, a boring 9 to 5 office job during the week. Got a 3-year-old daughter at home. So, you know, I'm trying to grind this at late hours of the night, but I don't know why I'm telling you this. I know that like 80% of you aren't even watching here, and the 50% that are probably watching just don't give a shit. No one's telling me to do this. I'm doing this. I'm addicted to fantasy sports. I'm addicted to the grind. I'm addicted to getting better. I'm just a little bit tired today. So sorry again if the energy was down. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys though. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, day, night, wherever you are. And I'll see you guys real soon. Also, for all my basketball boys out there, can the Houston Rockets just please force a game 7 so we can see all the LeGoat truthers just kind of sweat their balls off with their GOAT, with their daddy, with their hero potentially being the first guy to ever lose a series up 3-0. Twitter would just be mania. I know it's very unlikely to happen, but at least give us a game 7. Let's see those guys sweat.